Welcome to Follow Your Joy podcast, where intuition is the doorway to your wisdom, your genius, and your joy. I'm your host, Marla Diane, and I've been transforming creative entrepreneurs' lives for over 26 years. Through 2 businesses as a success coach and a business strategist, and prior to that, an entertainment publicist and a talent manager for 2 decades. It's time to make joy your inner GPS for life and business decisions rather than lean on your logic and reason first. You'll not only be following what is most authentic to you and for you, but you will live the beautiful life that's meant just for you. You'll come to learn that following your joy is a life and a business strategy. Listen in for inspiring entrepreneurial stories and solocasts that illuminate how by trusting your intuition, you'll create a fulfilling result. Want to learn how to access, trust, or up-level your intuition? Join me in the conversation to find out how. Well, hello, creatives. Welcome back. We are in episode 21. So I have a unique artisan guest today who's a jewelry designer who I met at a local art show during the summer that I was so intrigued by her creative process, her inspiration for that, and her story that I had to invite her to the podcast to share with you. This is not your typical jewelry designer craftswoman. This is what intrigued me, her artistic inspiration, as she'll share more in detail, which are cultures. Well, hear me out on this. First time I heard this, which are cultures and art movements from the craftsmanship of the Scythians, who are nomadic people who roam the Russian steppes from 900 BC to 200 BC, to Rene Lalique, who epitomized the Art Nouveau movement and beyond. Boy, that's a mouthful. But the point is, wait till you hear this. It's very intelligent. It's intriguing. It's cultural. I mean, it's just yummy. I love it. So before I introduce you to her, since the theme today seems to be cultural, I have some important, timely cultural things to talk to you about. So you might even want to take notes. Here's a question: is if you read this headline, would it intrigue you? How Gen Z is changing the future of business and how this affects you. Think about that. See, one of my passions is innovation. And this info I'm about to share with you is innovative and very empowering and actually very positive. It's a vital resource for your business growth and communication skills. And it's directly from my blog this week. You can find it at marladiane.com/blog. So let's get savvy about myth versus truth regarding generations and how they're driving tremendous change, challenge, and opportunity for commerce, culture, and relationships. So founders and authors of the book, which I've been reading and really, really enjoying it, Z-Economy, just like it sounds, Z-Economy. Jason Dorsey and Dr. Denise Villa of Center for Generational Kinetics are authors on not only Gen Z and how they're shaping brands, employment, sales, marketing, product, and growth strategies. It's also a platform, and this is what I love about this, that it seeks to build trust and connection between all generations. That's why I'm bringing this to your attention. So rather than divide us and a reason to cause judgment, which is out there, oh, the Gen Z, oh, the millennials, oh, the fill in the blank, right? Enough already. Let's look at how we can connect the generations instead of judge them. Yeah? Okay. So the center is research driven, having completed over, and these are in fact information from their website and their book. Anyway, they've completed over 100 studies. Again, they're research driven. Okay, this is facts and worked with over 500 global brands. According to their website and book, much of what is being said about generations is not true. All of this, it's not true. So, for example, this is good. Millennials are working. Gen X is very important. Boomers have valuable skills, and Gen Z seeks stability. In fact, every generation is incredibly important and essential. Right? How's that for a turn, right? Or a twist of events? The challenge for leaders and entrepreneurs, business owners, large and small, is separating myth from truth about generations to drive, and this is their purpose, to drive trust, loyalty, communication, sales, and retention. This is about you, the business owner, regardless of what you sell or offer. At the center of generational kinetics, they believe generations are not boxes, but powerful predictive clues on where to start to faster connect with and influence people of different ages and life stages. This is true for uncovering hidden insights into sales and marketing, employment, voting, marriage, spending, and all that. And so based on their numerous research studies, they use the birth years as the general beginning and ending years for each of the 5 generations. And here they are. And again, you can get this from their book. I highly recommend the book, and I'll give you in a moment the website. But here are the generations' dates. Gen Z, born 1996 to 2015. Millennials, which is where my son is, born 1997 to 1995. Gen X, born 1965 to 1976. Baby boomers, born 1946 to 1964. That's me. And traditionalists, born 1945 or earlier. So Jason and Denise state that the 3 key trends that shape generations are parenting, technology, and economics. So for example, and I know you've all heard this, many baby boomers have the parenting philosophy: we want it to be easier for our kids than it was for us. This philosophy, in turn, helped create and reinforce millennials' sense of entitlement, which is a hot debated subject. I know I've been in that subject several times. I'm sure you have. So you see how this is, causing division rather than connection. So bottom line is Jason, again, one of the co-founders, he's a dynamic, actually humorous speaker, and I believe is a millennial. I think he was super successful at this at the age of 20. And I think he's now 30 something. Anyway, he received over 1,000 standing ovations for his entertaining and profound speeches. And, you need to go ahead and take a look at, his knowledge. You can find him on YouTube that can help your business growth and your relationships with Gen Z. So I'll have a website link in the show notes because I found a really good YouTube presentation that he's done, and you can take a look at it. Okay. All right. So good. So I hope that gave you a little bit of inspiration to, instead of cause division between you and Gen Z, millennials, baby boomers, all that, really take a look at their info and see how it can help you at home. It can help you in business and let you be much more collaborative. Okay. All right. So let's bring on my lovely guest, Lisette Thierry. Let me tell you, it's a beautiful name, but I really had to learn how to pronounce this. She's a jewelry designer and a metalsmith based in Long Beach. So Lisette, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Marla.
You're welcome. So, all right, let's start by sharing, which is what, again, intrigued me. We had only known each other, I don't know, 10 minutes. And I said, oh my God, I got to get you on the podcast. Give us a glimpse of your story, what led you to metalsmithing and this Scythian, right? Scythian themed jewelry.
Okay, well, I started making macrame jewelry while I was in high school and into college. And I started out college as an architectural major. And in my beginning drafting class, one of my fellow students wanted a macrame ring made out of metal. And I had to learn to work with metal. And once I took a class through the Los Angeles Recreation Department, Parks and Recreation Department at Barnsdale Park at the Hollyhock House of Frank Lloyd Wright House, um, I changed majors and dropped architecture and decided to become a jeweler. And that's where that started. Now, the interest in the Scythians, there was an exhibit at the county museum in the 70s, and these were a nomadic people of Iranian descent, actually. People think that they were Russian, but they weren't. They were Iranian. And they traveled the Russian steppes, but they were all excellent craftspeople. And there was a degree of what I call minutia in their work, where fine details that knowing what tools I use today, I can't imagine how they did what they did without the contemporary tools. So I was fascinated by the degree of small, intricate pieces that they made. And so as a metalsmithing student, I was always interested in detail and the little details and little design elements. And that's kind of what carried me. And then, of course, Rene Lalique is world known for his jewelry, his enamels, his glass. To this day, his company still produces work from him. And so those are a couple of my main inspirations. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that they were very detailed in what they did.
Yeah. So, it's interesting. I find again with every one of these stories of the creatives I have on here, almost every one of them that did go to college or maybe even didn't, but in their early years, and remember, this is all about intuition, right? Following your joy, your intuition, is that they all changed their careers or their majors while they were in college. Almost every one of them, because they followed the joy, the intuition. Would you say that's the true for you?
I think so, because when I was in architecture, I found it tedious.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it didn't bring me a lot of joy.
Mm-mm.
And it was when I switched to something, I was accustomed to working small to begin with, and maybe that is part of it. Yeah, little itty bitty things. Yes.
And with your hands, I mean,
Yes. Yes.
it's a big
Yeah.
part for
Yeah.
you.
So, designing and making jewelry just kind of fit into, I don't know, what I wanted to do. And
Mhm.
even though I'd grown up making all kinds of things and drawing and painting, and this was it.
Yeah.
This newfound metal work, that was the thing I wanted to do.
Yeah, and again, it's this intuitive hunch, this intuitive direction is what causes that. I mean, it's yes, we have our intellect, we have our logic that says, but what really drives, and see if you agree with us, what really drives us, it's the joy, it's the intuition that's saying this you like, this you're enjoying, the other thing was boring to you.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
And I always say too that it's no coincidence, there's no mistake that that showed up in your life. That was all part of kind of the design of your life plan in my eyes. It wouldn't have showed up if it wasn't meant to be there.
No, and that just that little request from a fellow student made all the difference in the world with what I decided to do with my
It
life,
completely changed
because
the
I was
career.
determined to follow through and make his ring for him in metal. And that took learning how to work in metal.
That's it.
So, yeah.
And that's the seed. That's what I also call the success clues, is it changed the trajectory of your life.
Yes.
That one thing. Yeah. So I love that. Okay, good. Good, good, good. So what brings you the most joy today in your work and your business?
Probably working with a wide variety of gemstones,
Mm.
not the usual diamond, sapphire, ruby, tanzanite, not the typical. The odd things, petrified woods that have been opalized over time in the earth, the replacement of the wood that's rotted away with other minerals that create opal, jaspers, agates, things with interesting patterns and colors. Um, I start a piece by picking out stones, and I'll start with the main stone, and then I might use rubies or sapphires or tourmaline or zircon or spinel, etc., for accent stones. But the main stone is usually something unusual, from petrified wood to an agate or a jasper or fossilized fern or dinosaur bone.
Mm.
There's a world of rock out there that is interesting.
Yeah.
It's not yard rock.
Yeah. No, and I love how you explain that you start with that because that's where you're going to find the design. That's where you're
Yes.
going to find the inspiration, right? That's your creative
Yes.
process.
Right.
Yeah. Huh.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I mean, when I saw, came up to your booth, I'm like, this is really unique jewelry, which is what, caused me or inspired me to start talking to you. So obviously I love talking to artists based on, my love of artistry. And that's what caught my eye is it was really unique. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen jewelry like yours.
And that's kind of the point. Um, Quite often people will say to me, well, I've never seen anything like this. Well, that's kind of the point. It really is. What's the point of making something that looks like what everybody else is making or that you can buy at Macy's or, Nordstrom or Target?
Yeah.
It's pointless.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I take these interesting stones and create things that are very different.
Hmm. Very much so. And they also, which I think I mentioned to you as I was standing there. I mean, the other jewelry artists that were there had their own, lovely, unique, if you will, look to their jewelry. But yours was distinctly high end, high level. I mean, that's another thing that caught me. It's just, it didn't feel like everybody else's, like we were saying. So,
Right.
yeah, would you say that you would fit your, product, your jewelry in a higher end category?
Yes, I would. I would. There's a lot of effort into the design and the stones, and what many people don't realize that aren't familiar with all of these interesting stones that I work with. First of all, I run into a lot of people who don't realize that they're real stones. And then I have to explain that they are real stones and where they're found and where they're mined and what countries they come from. Some people say, but it's just an agate or a jasper.
Mhm.
It's just is not a word that I use to describe any of the stones that I work with. That kind of lessens their value by saying, well, it's just this, or it's just that. And I think all of these stones are valuable, and people would be surprised at how valuable some of the agates and jaspers and fossilized woods and ferns and other materials are, dinosaur bone, how really truly expensive some of those things can be.
Yeah.
And like I said, they're not your basic yard rock. And,
Yeah, no, no, no. You just said dinosaur rock?
dinosaur bone.
Bones,
Yes.
dinosaur
Yeah.
bones?
So
Yeah.
usually it's found in Utah or Wyoming, that part of the world.
Hmm.
There's a large um, area of Utah and Wyoming where dinosaur bone is discovered. And I'm sure there might be other parts of the world too, but right now that's kind of the primary source.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that can be interesting too, because it has a very cellular looking structure. So there are little cells with linear elements surrounding the cells. And depending upon the soil and mineral conditions
Mm-hmm.
of the earth where that dinosaur dropped and rested for millions of years,
Mm.
can change the color of the cells and the linear elements that surround them. So the typical would be red or gray or maybe yellow to orange. But I also have green dinosaur bone and I have magenta dinosaur bone and I've seen bright blue dinosaur bone. And
Interesting.
yes, and it all depends upon the conditions of the land where it was found.
Yeah. And so you've
Yeah.
made jewelry with dinosaur bone.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
See everybody, that's unique. How many jewelry designers do you know makes high-end jewelry, beautiful, unique jewelry with dinosaur bones?
Yes.
I mean, yeah, that's really cool. Okay. So let's move to a story in your life or business where you followed your intuition. And this is aside from what we've already obviously mentioned in your college years, where you followed your intuition that led to a joyful, fulfilling result.
Well, I would say back in the 80s, I briefly worked for a small jewelry firm where we made jewelry for the TV series Moonlighting for Sybil Shepherd to wear. And one of the women that I worked with was going to Tucson to this gem show, which I'd never heard of. At that point, I really didn't work that much with stones, except unless if I were doing wedding rings for a commission or something like that. I'd work with diamonds or sapphires or rubies or a combination. But as all of these interesting stones that I've mentioned, I'd never even seen at that point. I mean, they're the local rock shops, they'd have turquoise and moss agate and, black onyx and carnelian, pretty much the run of the mill stuff, malachite. But beyond that, there wasn't much more that was being offered. And so she wanted to know if I would accompany her on the drive to Tucson for this big show. And I thought, well, this sounds interesting. Well, that was my introduction to a world of stones I'd never seen before. And it changed the trajectory of the work that I did. I used to do a line of semi-production work or limited production work that I would sell to small galleries and stores. And this put me on another path to doing more individual pieces. Mm-hmm. And so from that year, which was 1985, except for the year that COVID hit and the show was not held, I've gone to Tucson since 1985, every February for the Gem and Mineral Show to see what's new on the market and,
yeah.
So what's being presented. Yeah.
So connect the dots for us. Where was the intuition that led you to the result?
The moonlighting thing was, again, we did things for her that had pretty much generic stones, rose quartz, things like that. Nothing out of the ordinary. And it just seems so limited. And when I started seeing all these different stones, I thought, well, I can expand and improve upon what I do by showing something that is not the norm.
Okay. Got it.
I didn't want to make the norm. I didn't want to make the everyday thing. I didn't want to make the thing that, one neighbor wants to wear because her next door neighbor is wearing. That wasn't my focus at all.
Right. Gotcha.
So seeing all that's been available in stones and having that increase year after year of what's available, what's out there. So the excitement of Tucson is what's been found this year.
Yeah. So
what's been found and where. Yeah.
So it sounds like to me that the creative intuitive process is what really took, the lead when you said to the moonlighting, situation that, you know what, no, let me sit with this and figure out how we can make this unique.
Right.
And you intuitively said, that's not, no, let's do this instead.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, good.
But
Yeah.
for myself, not for moonlighting, for
Right.
myself,
For
for my own
yourself.
work. Right. Right.
For your
Exactly.
own work. Okay. It was all
Yes.
around that
Yes.
time.
Yeah. Yes.
Which also, and I do understand it, it kind of gave you the opportunity to almost intuitively select stones,
Yes.
right? Select stones
Yes.
that you then, in this sales job, that you were able to present at trade shows.
Right.
So when you would go to the big gem shows, you would intuitively look through, find the stones that you felt were going to be appropriate and represented, if you will, of the company you worked for at those trade shows. Is that correct?
No.
No. Okay.
Okay.
Good.
So back to moonlighting. That was, I think I was there for maybe 6 months, and then I
Mhm.
moved on,
Okay.
and started just working on my own work, to sell to stores. I didn't work for large manufacturing companies. This company was a very small company. There were probably 6 employees.
Mhm.
I moved on from that and started doing trade shows in the arts. So, art shows, contemporary craft shows. The American Craft Council sponsors shows on the East Coast and in the Midwest that I started doing. At one time, they did shows in San Francisco.
Mhm.
So, I started participating in art shows that were art and craft, as people like to separate the two. But I felt that I needed to do work that, one, I enjoyed doing, and two, that would set me apart from the other jewelers that were there.
Gotcha.
So, in the process of getting involved in stones, I actually then fell into a job part time with gem and mineral dealers. They needed help at Tucson one year, and they knew that I always came to Tucson. So I'd been going to Tucson for 12 years at that point, and they gave me a call the week before it was supposed to start and said, "Are you coming to town this year?" And I said, "Well, I'm not sure. I haven't made a decision." They said, "Well, we need help. What if we pay all your expenses?" And I said, "I'm in." So,
Amen. Of
yeah, how
course.
much free time do I get?
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah. So off I went to Tucson to work with a gem and mineral company that I worked with for 22 years. But like I said, it was part time. I would do occasional shows with them.
Got it.
So, and the nice part of working with this company was that at most of the shows that I did with them, depending upon who the promoter was,
Mm.
I was given space for my jewelry. And it was a nice combination because a lot of times they would be set up at a show, like they used to do a string of shows called the International Gem and Jewelry Shows. And people would come and look at the stones, but say, "Oh, geez, but I don't have a jeweler." But once my work was there and they saw what could be done with all these unusual stones, it was a win win for the both of us.
Got it.
And so eventually I left that company as they prepared to retire and went to work for another company, doing the big gem show in Tucson. And that show, I say show, but collectively it's about 50 shows that go on concurrently throughout the city.
Mm.
It is the biggest gem and mineral show in the world, with buyers and sellers literally from all over the world that converge on Tucson for 1 to 2 weeks
Mm.
at the beginning of February.
Oh, what a great experience.
So you see everything from raw material to
Mm.
finished goods,
Mm.
everything from, agates and jaspers and fossil goods to diamonds and rubies and sapphires. It's all there.
It's all there, yeah.
It's all there in loose stones and finished goods, in high end finished goods and low end, everything in between. It's all there. Yeah.
Sounds like a good resource, those of you that are
It is a
jewelry
good resource.
artists.
Yeah.
Those of
Yeah.
you listening, if you haven't been to this Tucson show, I mean, it's intriguing to me just from the cultural standpoint. Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll hear every language spoken if,
Mhm.
if you're
Interesting.
around. Yeah. And so you meet people that are return customers, and so every year it's kind of like an old time reunion
Right.
with people that have come over from, whether it's Russia or the Netherlands or France or Spain or Argentina or Brazil,
Wow.
Canada, wherever. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
from a business standpoint, I'm like, boy, that is great networking.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
very much so. Okay, terrific. So why don't you let's kind of close this out with a couple last questions based on your, experience being an entrepreneur, being a creative entrepreneur. What, one tip of advice can you give our listeners?
Oh, that's a hard call. I go with do what you love. And
Okay.
I had a near death experience 19 years ago
Mm.
where I lost a kidney to a benign tumor, but it ate the kidney, and I like to call the tumor Igor because it deserves a name because it was pretty intense.
Oh.
And by the time it was diagnosed, I was near death, but I survived that. And when I came out of that whole episode, I thought, I don't know how much longer I have on this planet. So I'm really only going to do the jewelry I want to do.
That's
And
awesome.
that's what moved me from doing production work, from limited production work to doing nothing but one of a kind pieces.
Nice. Wow, look at that story
Yeah.
behind all that.
Yeah. And so
That-
that's what I've done since 2003.
So do what you love because
You know, it's a trite expression, but tomorrow's not promised to anybody. So I know people who have worked their whole lives doing a job they didn't care for because, they thought they were going to have their retirement, and then look at what happened to people who worked for Enron. That was kissed off by that whole debacle.
yeah.
I just decided to do what I wanted to do with my life, and here I am.
Here you are. No, it's a fabulous
Yeah.
piece of
And
advice.
in the process of doing that, I've run into new people, and I was never big on social media before, but I started a few years ago because the jewelry or the gem and mineral company that I work for now, they sell a line of stones that I design where I sand etch designs on black onyx. And so my stones are repped through their business at trade shows. But during the rest of the year, they don't want to deal with, someone contacting them, oh, I need some sand etch stones by Lisette, doing this whole coming to me and seeing what I've got and doing this whole go between. They don't want to be bothered with that. So that's when I opened up or started my Instagram account because they had followers on Instagram, and that's how they sold their stones in between shows. So that's where I now sell not only my stones, but my jewelry over my website, which is more of an information site. It's worked out well because I get to present new stuff every day. It's not so much as a planned visual. It's like I finished this or it's in progress. I'm going to snap a shot. I'm going to post it, get a reaction. And it's a great way to get daily exposure.
Oh, Instagram. No, I mean, that's all of our listeners are pretty up on the fact that it is one of the best places for these types of,
Yeah.
products and services. I mean, Instagram's my favorite place to be. So good on you. So you sell from your Instagram account,
Yes.
whereas very good. So your website is more of an informational. Okay, so why don't
Right.
you share then? What's your Instagram account name, and then what's your website?
Website is my name, lisettethierry.com. Very simple, straightforward. LISETTETHIERRY.com. And my Instagram page is at Lisette Thierry. Nothing complex. Well, okay, aside from my name. You can thank my mother for that.
We'll have it in the show notes, everybody. You don't have to memorize how to spell it.
No, yeah, exactly. that's where you'll see my work. And if you're local in Southern California, next month or into November, the co-op that I work out of, where my studio is, it's a 9 co-op artist co-op building, even though some of them are shared.
Mhm.
And we have a gallery space, and so we're having a gallery exhibit that runs through the 20th of November with 6 of the artists that are involved showing their work, including my work, called the Long Beach Co-op. And the address is 1330 Gladys Avenue in Long Beach. It will be open on weekends through the 20th of November from 12 to 4, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Excellent. Okay.
Yes.
So those of you that are in the Southern California area, or if you're visiting, yes, as you can actually go meet Lisette, take a look at her jewelry and whatever else is at that show. And again, it runs through November 20th. Wonderful. Thank you so much for being on the show with me.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was always, like I said, it's full of creativity, intelligence, just uniqueness, dinosaur bones. Okay. All right, everyone. So until next week, as you work and live, remember, always, always follow your joy, because success leaves clues for you. All right. So pay attention. Take care. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening in. You can find more entrepreneurial stories and resources at marladiane.com. And while you're there, enjoy my 3 free downloads to up-level your business and your life. How about you take a screenshot of this episode and tag me on Instagram by sharing your highlights of what you learned today? I'd love to connect there with you. Until next episode, take care.